The truth, prequel, layers, transgressions so stifled and pushed out of the thought processes simply to be able to get up in the morning. I had 3 pages written, and each topic I mulled over revealed another deeper layer of hurt I had buried, to the point that I couldn't even touch the point of the whole thing. Marriage counseling, paying for some professional to tell your wife the exact same thing you are saying but won't be respected enough to listen to. Attempting to compete with her lavish lifestyle on a cash-only basis, when she sees no issue with destroying our credit by taking vacations on and shopping sprees on credit cards. Another 401 loan should bring them back under their limits, she says, because she just can't do nothing in regard to our massive accumulation of debt, as if the suggestion of taking a real account of her spending was outrageous to ask, being then regarded as the controlling a whole instead of practicing any self-governance and maturity. Why am I still putting up with it? Because I don't have the money to do anything at all about it. Lawyers will eventually want money. A marriage counselor will too. But that's depending on whether I can ever stand to get past the deceit and lies. She put my face on her own conscience and attributed her guilt to me being a controlling daddy to her, always trying to tell her what to do, as opposed to in reality the questions I had about how could you do those things. But now a third party has been allowed to stroke her ego, to fill her needs to be found attractive, as my own constant affections and attention has simply become a given. Another girl's only vacation came and went, and she texted me about how she had overspent. I gave her $200, the last remaining funds I had from an income tax return, so she could pay the minimum payments on her 3 out of 7 credit cards at some point. I too have to get out of my own debt that I racked up paying for tires for the car, fixing the heater this past winter, and Walmart clothes so I don't look like a shabby person at my job. And well, maybe there's been times I didn't want to look like a cheapskate when my wife didn't buy everything on my kid's birthday list. Did we really need to buy the 1,000 washer and dryer, or was it you who stormed off in the middle of the store when I showed the slightest hesitancy to investing so much in what is now 2 years later a broken one? The 300 washer and 200 dryers would have at least lasted just as long, and you didn't need to buy the high-efficiency soap either. Darn, another car repair. No, don't ask them to do an oil change. I will do that myself. I went ahead and had them do the oil change. It was only $150. And then the friend from Facebook came into our lives. I want to sit on your lap. Why don't you go sit on Mommy's lap? She's busy. Mommy, plus, she's almost as big as I am now. You have more of a lap for her to sit on. My attempt was to get more meaningful interaction between them, easily shrugged off as meaningless. I welcomed her onto my lap, and we watched Open Season 2 together. At least this time, while my wife was on the computer. She didn't threaten to leave to the bedroom if we were going to choose to watch something other than what she had on the TV. You see, it didn't matter she was busy on the computer. She had selected a show on TV to put it on. We, my daughter and I, were supposed to either watch that, or Mommy would punish us by going into the room and removing her presence. We need to talk. I haven't felt like I have loved you for a while now. We want different things. We seem to be living a separate life. But I don't understand. You just gave me a birthday card saying that you know you don't show it often, but you love me deeply. I know, I just don't know what I want. You are more like a brother to me now. Oh my God, a brother. Look, I know we haven't been intimate in years. I just don't subscribe to the whole wifely duty crap. I know you have had issues in your past and have even told me that pressuring you is pushing you away. Well, I am always interested. I am just not the type to initiate. You used to be. It seemed like you never had a problem when we first got together. Plus, I feel like because of your past, I am making you do something you don't really want to, and therefore I'm not really desired. I need to feel desired too. I don't know. I just know that I am all screwed up, and it's not fair to you. Don't worry about me. Part of my promise in front of everyone 10 years ago was to stand by you in sickness and in health. If this stands a chance, I stand by my promise to you, because I love you. The week following, I happened to check the cell phone bill and saw over 100 text messages between my wife and an old friend from high school. This happened on the day before I got this talk. So, I moved away for a few days, which really hurt my daughter. I called once to say goodnight to her and she was crying before she even got on the phone, asking me, "When are you coming home, Daddy?" The next day I texted my wife asking if we could try to work things out. She said she couldn't promise anything and couldn't deal with the expectations. I said I wouldn't expect anything but still wanted to try. She agreed, and the next day, I moved in. She said she didn't sleep with the guy, and I'm sorry. You're sorry for hurting me or sorry that it happened? I'm sorry this happened. Jesus, thanks. So, we go about our daily routine. Every time she picks up the phone my heart drops into my stomach. Who are you talking to? I want to scream, as if an answer would quell my suspicion. That damn cell phone, glued to her face every moment her hands are free. Her girlfriends decided the best thing to do would be to set up a meeting between her and this OM, to see if there was anything there. And to show whether or not he was just full of bull crap, she declined to go. But I found out later that she had met him by herself for lunch. And then in talking to her mom, who now lives with us as well due to her own financial inability to function, her mom explained an entirely different meeting between them. Then my wife separated the cell phone plan, putting mine on my own name, because it wasn't fair for her FB game charges to be paid for out of the household account for bills. This incidentally also removed my ability to see if she was still in contact with the OM. As if she didn't know. This is all coming to a head, and I find myself unable to do anything about it. My daughter absolutely needs me. I don't want her to be raised predominantly by my wife and my wife's mother. Neither of them has shown any capacity to show affection or maturity beyond their own selfish wants. Be a man trying to get out of debt, with a wife having twice as much personal debt. And being viewed as a wallflower because going out all the time is too expensive. But then having your wife go out anyways without you, even on vacations to other states with her girlfriends, and you find yourself trying to compete with her good times. Look, honey, I'm not a wallflower. I can show you a good time. Exhausting every small amount of money left over after sending out the bills. She earns more than I do, which is no big deal to me, and I am proud of her for doing well. But I don't make her responsible for the debts that I personally have incurred, even if some of them were to pay for household fixes and repairs. I too have a 401k that I thought we would eventually combine together to retire on, but she is racking her debts up. And then at the end of the year taking a loan out of hers to just barely get her cards under the limits. The excuses I have heard, well, I'm just not a very affectionate person, so like it or leave it. Well, I'm interested most times, I'm just not the type to initiate it. Look, I am just always going to be in debt. The future looks so bright, post-discovery of an emotional affair. There's been no communication about this after I moved back in, and told her I would forgive. But of course, I feel like I did myself a disservice by doing so as quickly as I did. I want to know if he is still contacting her, or vice versa. I want to know if there is anyone else. So many questions, but she is in no way communicative about anything. Dare I scratch off the scab that may very well float me away with what flows from the wound? It appears the willingness to divorce has to be valid and ready. I get that. I guess what I am asking is how you go about changing that attitude about privacy. I've already told her that secrecy is what it is, not privacy. And if she had nothing to hide or be secret about, what would be the big deal? I then got a text saying she was done, and that she couldn't live with the lack of trust or having me check up on her. She took ownership of ruining the trust, but then acted like she would rather end our marriage than offer transparency. We do have a kid, so I am trying to get her dunce cap off. But it doesn't look like she is wired that way. So, it pretty much meant the end of our marriage. Did I just answer my own question? Or is there a way to get her to understand the need for transparency? I think I did give away a set of jail-free card. In a sense, I thought I was still proving my willingness to trust her. And the whole thing seeming to be falling down around me at the moment, now I see it as a rash movement to try to catch some of the pieces as they fell. I have to say, the more I think about it, the more I gave her the pants to wear. But now I am completely in the dark about it. Everything. She's the type that will throw the baby out with the wash water. Without even thinking about it, I think this conclusion of her nature by me is what is imprisoning. Knowing that the only answer is to end it. She acts as if it's my own problem not to immediately give trust again. Even tonight she's starting to show signs of being clingier to her iPhone. I could start a real show by asking for the password. But right now I'm finding myself in limbo, halfway. Fact is, she's not going to move out, and I don't want to go anywhere either. I cannot force her to give me the passwords, and then spend time snooping just to see if she's in contact. Some of the things she's doing seem to indicate a renewed interest in us, but then again it could all be smoke and mirrors. I've got to give her the talk about transparency and yielding the info. But it's going to go very badly. And she does not possess the intelligence or mentality to even consider such a thing as an emotional affair existing. It's like I have to convince her what she's done is wrong. And even that's going to be a disaster. Do I want to even try? Sometimes I think a lawyer is the first place to start. I know full well that every word out of my mouth will be refuted and given all of 3 seconds consideration before defensiveness and ignorance takes a hold. And after that, even breathing her direction is useless. I know her too well, which is the point of having such difficulty with it. Maybe having a professional say would bring about more consideration. But Jesus, so much for self-respect. Depressed man, I'm 39, have worked at the same job for 15 years. The pay isn't competitive, but the market's tough now. Married 10 years, is she getting tired of me? The other day she was gone for 4 hours and came home with one small Walmart bag. Car's got 130,000 miles on it and makes noises. It needs work, the house needs work. The lawn needs mowed, and I'm ducking tired. I forget the last time I bonded with her. Don't want the dutiful wife thing, I want to be desired. Get that, ladies? Am I going out of shape? Is that grayer in my hair? Daddy, get off your back and play with the kid too. Do I have enough money for gas tomorrow? Or that pack of smokes to further the release from it all? Did she go to lunch with her friend the other day? One Walmart bag of stuff, how stupid am I? The mortgage is going up, got the bill this week, surprise. Daycare is $105 a week for all of half an hour in the morning, and I get her as soon as she gets bus there after school. Macaroni, cheese, and hot dogs, what fine cuisine for our money. What else is going wrong that us men have to worry about? That cause a burden heavy, but most often trifled. I'm sitting here wondering if my wife is still seeing someone, if I have the money to do anything about it. And have a child that is my utmost priority now. I'd love to see it all work out. Darn near textbook for what it's worth. Checked the cell records online and saw too many texts to another. Just a friend as it was explained. Then found out about the secret lunches and other meetings. No physical affair. Far as I know, but definitely emotional affair. I left for 3 days and came back to try to get MC and work things out for the sake of our child, who was very distraught at my being gone for 3 days. Since then, there has been contact from the other man to WW. But responses from her have been short and dry. Reading here, I certainly get the need for absolutely no more contact. Doing a 180, for the past several months we've been going out a lot, genuinely enjoying dinners and margaritas. Dated a couple times, just us. We get along and have fun together, but she keeps getting back to a point of being able to say she is just not feeling it. Here's the point, something mental is going on with her too. She has suddenly become more interested in piercings and tattoos and going out with girlfriends even when our financial situation is horrible. It's been on her own dime, which is really credit cards and makes it difficult for me to compete. I, with my own CC debt and desire to get rid of them, am operating off of a cash-only basis. She continuously seems to reach periods of dire unhappiness, doesn't know why when asked, just is. I've always been a caring, affectionate, and hardworking man that takes all of my responsibilities seriously, so I really don't know how I could have contributed to this being as it is right now. She regularly reaches the point of saying she just isn't feeling it for me, as if love has gone from her. But then she will say she loves me, and kisses and hugs are available. She has been put on meds by doctor for anxiety attacks or panic attacks. I don't think this is what is needed, though I believe she is needing help for depression or BPD. Seeing how it's a huge roller coaster of mood swings regularly. I even think that the emotional affair with the other man was part of an ego stroking needed in the middle of her midlife crisis as well. Compounded with depression at least. Massive debt, the inability to do too much together because of that. We are definitely on cruise control. And haven't put or been able to put a whole lot into the us times in a long while. 2 deaths of people close to her and her family, major car repairs, and money flying out the window. It has been difficult for both of us. But it seems she maintains that her unhappiness in life is somehow connected to me. Last weekend she was gone for a period of hours shopping, and says she was looking for Easter stuff. I asked her if she went and met someone else for lunch again. And she got irate at the suggestion, and I know this to either be a continuation of the emotional, in the form of more deception, or it may very well be the truth. I told her that I didn't want to be married to her anymore, was tired of the blame on me. And she admitted fault for a lot of issues between us. But didn't want a divorce. Just maybe separate for a while to date and hopefully reconnect. The house we live in has both our names on the mortgage, and early this year, due to her mother's eviction from her apt, invited her mom to come stay with us to get back on her feet. So now, I am faced with a lot of options that really suck for me. Move out, date my wife, and hopefully reconnect, pursue marriage counseling together and hope that helps. Miss out on tucking my child into bed every night. Face the possibility that I might actually like being on my own and the freedom and weight lifted off of me. But I think I need to get my wife into a doctor who can really diagnose what is going on with her mentally. This depression and midlife crisis could be the difficulty behind most of what is going on with us. She has not been open with her cell phone or transparent about it. There are passwords in place. And my insistence would simply push her at this current mental period of freakishness to do something not conducive to ultimate reconciliation, which is what I want. And deep down think she wants as well. I think she views having to seek IC as weakness. Is going to MC putting the cart before the horse, or can AMC diagnose disorders and make recommendations for medical intervention? Should I move out at this current stage in her life? Because really, neither her or I can afford the house by ourselves. And I sure don't want to be stuck living alone with her mother. Plus, I don't want to displace my child who has enjoyed time with the granny and school is close and her bedroom and toys and all. Is there an effective way to promote getting my wife to consider a mental checkup to determine the cause of all of this unhappiness? I think a lot of the issues between us would start seeing improvement, including the understanding for transparency versus privacy at all costs. And the understanding in her mind as to what problems she herself is contributing to her unhappiness, debt, lack of priorities, lack of involvement with child, etc. She really needs to get on solid ground mentally before she can really accept or appreciate the need for these closer marital issues. At least in my opinion, that is. The idea of demanding complete transparency would be lost to whatever illness is affecting her right now, which would ultimately involve divorce, as I have reached the conclusion of. She still wants to do things with me, like a major concert coming into town in a month or so. But there's an issue there about spending money that has contributed to her unhappiness by being in such a large amount of debt. I guess I am just trying to figure out the best course of action in terms of first things first, as there are so many issues that need immediate action. And I don't want my child to suffer, or myself for that matter, by moving out and separating and doing what the wifey wants at this point in time, when she doesn't even really know what that is. Or if her suggestions will help the situation and make it so she feels it between us again. I would and was ready to pull the cold and hard card with demands of complete transparency. Perhaps the full 180. Etc. If I did not believe wholeheartedly that there is a mental issue, if nor more, going on with her. If I thought that she was genuinely in control of herself right now. I am not trying to make excuses for her. But this is not the person I married 10 years ago. Why I think something is wrong is because her own willingness to accept and having voiced acceptance of her fault for ruining things. But also the dire unhappiness. And going from extremes of wanting to do things together and being affectionate, to saying she wished she knew how she got to this point so she could fix it. So conflicting. Part of me wants to get away because I don't know what the truth is. Part of me wants to get away because I don't trust that what she has said about the emotional affair was all there was to it. The thought of finding out something more, I envy, sort of, those who actually have at least the closure of knowing the worst has happened. I keep coming back to reactionary thought. What is it I am going to do? Tell her to leave. She leaves and finds out life sucks and wants to be back with me. By that time I'm so happy without the burden of constant despair and resentment that I am unsure of accepting her back, or she doesn't. So much for trying to plan accordingly. This already has drugged me down so much. I end up questioning my own motives and if my own mind is in the right place to make the best move for my kid and me. Sometimes it's like I fear that I am unwilling to accept that I myself have been rejected. Is that megalomania? Narcissistic? Is it just my pride that's hurt? That's no reason to make a move, but now I get to know this lingering event will most certainly occur. Whatever that event is. Whether it be me moving out or her moving out. Or MC working or not. Last night the kiddo was laughing and playing with Granny, and overhearing that laughing made me think of what I would be missing by moving out. I had to remove myself from the room to let it all out for a while. Wife was asleep on the couch. In the mind of this child is all she knows a family to be: Christmases, Thanksgivings, birthday celebrations. The three of us, our traditions established for almost 10 years now. All torn away, torn apart, destroyed by the flippant whim of a mentally unstable woman. We could have overcome the issues in financial imprudence, of the lack of intimacy, the lack of affection. We could have overcome it all. But then came another man she hasn't seen in over 20 years. What was so guarded and withheld and painstakingly drawn from her in the form of love was as a gift-wrapped present awaiting him. And to hear our child talk and laugh and go along in life like there is no storm coming to take it all apart. It was not within my grasp to have to think I would need to tell my wife to watch her spending, nor was it in her to listen. It was not within my processes to continually suggest that affection and intimacy and care for me as well as our family and future was remotely necessary. Then, to hear those words, so casually spoken, "Why does everything always have to be about you?" towards me. Going on 5 years without the slightest hint of a desire or interest in me regarding intimacy. And I also get to hear that I am not as patient as she once thought I was. It is as if busting apart a piece of granite with a sledgehammer. For years working away at it until it finally gives into smaller pieces. And working away at those until they each give way, ultimately to a pile of fine dust on the floor, and saying, "Wow, that wasn't as resilient as I thought," with much disgust and reproach. But while she was hammering away, I was taking care of my little girl, being the cartoon watching, cereal eating, positive reinforcing, homework helping, band-aid applicating, tear wiping, laugh inducing, available lap the whole time. And with a resentful mind my wife found it so easy. So very easy to sneak around and meet her old flame, her soulmate, her "I didn't sleep with him" lover from 20 years ago. To find some fragment of happiness for herself, listening to the foul-mouthed friends be considered such humorous guys and being regarded as disgusting when I make similar light-hearted jokes. Listening to how sexy and masculine some fool from any random television show is really the reason it is being watched. While right here, I, myself who dedicated my life to her, does completely without. Let me look with a positive mind on 50-50 visitation with my daughter from here on out. Let me consider how free that single-bedroom apartment will seem. Waking up and watching cartoons by myself. And eating cereal. Never in my life have I experienced a well so deeply dug within my soul, too deeply dug with bitterness and resentment and anguish. As I attempt to throw tarp after tarp over it to keep the rain out. Ultimately to be chided and humiliated with another man's affections towards my wife, able to blow her over like a Father's Day card proudly displayed on the top of the TV set. Insult to injury, salt to a fresh wound, how patient I have been, how selfless and long-suffering my heart has always been, to only be faulted with not being. "Mommy's not feeling it, honey, so Daddy has to go away. I will see you again," something no child of 9 can possibly fathom. It appears my wife was born without a soul. The thought of reconciliation being so far from even remote hope, after I have already drowned in the tides. Already drowned. So, what do I want? What is it that will bring life back into me? We go to our first counseling session today, and I approach it with less than hope. If I could paint her a picture of the results of her love towards me these past 5 years, what would it show? I want her to see, to experience, to go through exactly what it is she put me through to its finest thread of extents. I want her to know without a doubt that I was the man I know I was supposed to be in every count, at every fine particle of necessity for this family. Would I have sacrificed of myself to such a degree only to be blamed for selfishness and self-service? And then leave her. Sorry for the rant, I just can't believe how blinding that self-centeredness can be for someone who is completely unable to account for themselves yet be so confident in the fault of others. I await the counselor's suggestions that somewhere along the lines, between opening the doors of my home to my wife's mother, since she was evicted from her apartment, to come live with us and get back on her feet, to reaching the point of near bankruptcy trying to compete with my wife's lavish credit card party life, and then being blamed for being a wallflower who isn't romantic, after so long without interest from her. Awaiting the counselor's suggestion that somewhere I was not available to my wife emotionally. How I wish there were a camcorder running in our living room for the last 10 years. How I wish someone had been there the whole time recording the whole thing, where there was the undeniable proof that would penetrate my wife's complete absence of honesty with herself. I have no defense. It's my word against her complete rewritten history. It's so hard to think that no matter what is said or revealed, that deep down in my own mind, knowing my wife was capable of this. Sure, I could have ended things years ago, when I realized she didn't listen. I could have taken the hardline approach, and maybe that would have made a difference despite her rejection of such things. The only outcome of that would have been an end to it, trying for so long to reach her. To reach that core of her that was so closely guarded that she had thrown away the key long ago. To find myself once again, after it all, after the great ascension up the mountainside, to reach the pinnacle of it all. And see it be absolutely worth none of the struggle. The word hate seems like a child's term for broccoli, as what I felt for my wife. Ultimately amounted to that, thus removing the value any of the struggle had to it. Look at that guy, chasing his hat down the street. We had friends that are now considered by my wife best friends, that introduced my wife and I 15 years ago. One had stood there as a bridesmaid in our wedding. This very same one stood there while my wife met this other man at a bar. The betrayal by them all, the betrayal by them all. What's left of me, what good has all my life's experiences of knowing to be patient and trusting and understanding and having hope and some of what some people would consider the truest forms of love amounted to? Dare I instill these human traits into my daughter when she too could find herself one day used because of them? I would give my life for my daughter, and I don't think there's a rational parent on here that doesn't understand that. So, when it comes to something like this, do we suck it up and forgive and hope for the best, when that's no guarantee that I won't find myself at the same point later in life? Even older, and less able to entertain that small flicker in the back of all of our minds that says it's not too late to move on, you know. That tiny seemingly selfish glint of freedom from it that appears to slip through our fingers as we try to work it out. Or set up that first counseling session. I basically feel like the only reason I am trying to work it out is to be there for my daughter. Fairness and self-salvation be damned, I have no idea what to do. When you are without a doubt in your mind the sole person that gives the kind of attention, care, and selfless devotion to a child in the family, and know what the removal of that kind of interaction will do to them, it feels like you've done a horrible thing, leaving them to deal with the constant disappointment of seeking the same thing from the parent that chooses to tell them to go clean their room, in response to their asking them to play with them. Using chores to remove the burdensome bother of a child wanting you to play. I lived my last 10 years watching that happen, and stepped in double time to provide the kind of happiness that child needed that I myself recognized and realized was provided to me in my own. It's as if the entire form of friends, family, and trusted confidants of my wife's are nowhere to be found. Not one would step in for a moment to say, "Hey, wait a minute, what are you doing?" Some of them have lived for years very expressive of their desire to find someone to love them. Yet they stood right there, supporting and encouraging my wife to go and meet this other man. Listening and believing every lie she talked about me, being an angry person, rest assured my daughter would say otherwise. And how a voice of a 9-year-old could ring so loud, but here I stand at the crossing. To commit myself to counseling with my wife, or to dump this huge burdensome bag that wore sores in my back for years and run like hell to the freedom. But I cannot just leave my kid. I cannot just leave her to suffer that life. My comment. Working on part 2 as always. I'll finish part 2 as quick as I can. Check out the other stories while you wait for part 2. And I'll see you there.